because I'm Dan the man.
There you go, man. I can have George narrate my entire life and everything would be great. So, on that note, welcome back to Not a Strong Start, a podcast by filmmakers who talk movies, television, and kindly request George to narrate all of our lives. I'm your host, Danny Kubrick.
I'm not your host. Ready, camera, action.
And I'm the other guy, you big cheese.
The big cheese. So, in this week's episode, we're going to talk about different, what is it, like subgenres, I guess? Subgenres, it's kind of fair to say. Categories
Yeah,
of
just
movies.
different genres of movies and who
Yeah.
we would, if we were the producers on
Mm,
this genre of movie, who would we pick as the director for our project?
there you go. And then we get to, kind of see what that would look like. So, but first, we're going to hit you with the current event.
Marvel plans to make changes to their show format by doing things like having showrunners or focused on multi-season serialized shows rather than limited series, or having a pilot developed, things like that you see on normal TV shows. Disney and Marvel are like, you know what, maybe we should follow this regular format that has worked throughout the years to try to have coherent TV shows. What's everyone's thoughts on that? We'll start with you, Dan.
So they're doing what they should have already been doing, or what everybody else has already done and proven successful. Who would have thought that this would work? It's not like they've had decades and decades of, data that they can look at to show that this method works, but sure. So this is why Marvel is in its current state right now, is because of this, is the fact that they had to go through what, 5 years maybe of television to find out that this isn't working. So now they have to go back to square one and kind of start over again. So I don't know, man. This one makes me worried about the direction of Marvel. Is not only have we been getting subpar movies, at least compared to what we had the first 20 years, it's the fact that even with their television, it's like the aha moment. Like, oh, aha, we didn't know we had to do this. Just like when they did Star Wars and they had the new trilogy, and it was like, oh, maybe we should have done one coherent story across all three movies. It's like, duh. When does this ever work? Like, in what example has this ever worked where you've never where they went this method? Why is our executives like, how often does this work? Seriously, like, I don't know.
Because the methods are archaic, Dan. That's why. We're not in the Stone Age anymore. What are we thinking? Come on, man. We got moving pictures, god damn it, and they're digital.
It's the big cheese.
Yeah. No, honestly, it's a duh. It's about time, guys. Kind of moment. Honestly, I mean, this is not actually their first soiree into TV. I mean, we had Agents of Shield, which went through that process. It had a pilot, it had a showrunner, and while it wasn't always great, at least the continuity of from season one into the last season still made some kind of sense. It was worth watching for the most part.
Mhm.
It's not like a hard thing to figure out. I think what did them in is just it's streaming. Streaming was their Achilles heel. They started seeing like what Netflix and everyone else was doing. It's like, oh, okay, we'll just apply that format to what we're doing, but that's not what worked for them. A plan worked for them, and they kind of just forgot that.
Yeah, I feel with them is like their idea behind the TV shows was this is gonna supplement the movies. This is gonna fill in some blanks for the movies. And they came out and they said that originally that was their plan for it. But then that being their plan, they decided to take the approach like, all right, then if that's the case, let's just make a very long movie, make it as a movie, the whole thing, and then we'll cut it up into pieces and make it a limited series. So I feel they didn't develop this as a TV show. They developed it as a long movie that they then cut into multiple parts, which is why you have such inconsistency when it comes to most of these series. Now, I'm not going to be here and say that all of the series they put out were a failure, but the majority of them did not live up to expectations. There were some good ones here and there. Maybe this change in format and then them deciding also to cut back on the content they put out, maybe we'll get higher quality in the coming years when it comes to it. So I don't think anything wrong can come out of changing back to what works when it comes to TV shows.
Can't be worse. I agree. It can't be worse.
Yeah. Either stay the same or get better.
We touched a little on the TV shows and everything. Now we're gonna go into the movie world, and we're gonna put on our producer hats. This actually says producer. Don't mind what it actually says. We're gonna put our producer hats on, and we're gonna make as if there's certain genres that we have to develop a movie in, and who's gonna be our director that we choose for this? Who do we feel gives us a chance to put out a good product for these movies? And we'll see who we have similar and who we don't. The rules of this scenario is individually we cannot reuse directors. So once I use a director, I can't use them for another category, but I can use a director that George had used. So just to kind of paint the picture of what the scenario is going to look like. So with that being said, let's get right into it. And let's start buddy cop movie. So
Yeah.
you're in charge with producing a buddy cop movie. You can pick any director you want, and they're gonna say yes automatically because you have blackmail information on them. So, with that being said, George, who do you pick to direct your buddy cop movie?
So I'm going with Bong Joon-ho, who's
Ooh,
known for like
okay.
Snowpiercer and Parasite.
Good
And
call.
you can't have him without having his boy, which is Song Kang-ho, who's lead actor in a lot of those films. And I thought, like, what if you do that? Pair him also with Steven Yeun, who's also really hot right now. And the whole idea is that Yoon is an American who goes back to Korea and he wants to help like clean up his home country. And so the two of them become cops. Not become cops. They're obviously already cops. But Song Kang, his character is kind of like the character who's too old for this, but he doesn't admit he's too old. Like I'm never too old for this. I can still do this job. And he got like this young buck who's coming in with him. It's like, I know what I'm doing. I don't need you. I don't need this young kid coming in with me. And they just trying to like, fight this whole drug ring or whatever. But the movie's pretty much called Soul Brothers.
Nice. Nice.
I want more movies from him.
Right. He can do comedy, he can do serious action and intense thrillers.
Yeah. Everything I've seen from him so far I have enjoyed. So I would definitely take a buddy cop movie from him. What about you, Dan? Who's
All right.
directing your buddy cop movie and why?
Okay, so in my movie, it's buddy cop movies lived more like in the 80s and 90s. So I wanted to set this one in the 90s. So it's not made currently. This one's made back in the 90s. But the director I chose was Pedro Almodovar. And he did movies as Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, Tie Me Up, Tie Me Down. He worked a lot with Antonio Banderas, but he had a very colorful, bright, cheeky comedy that he mixes with action. So he does that very well. He's never done a buddy cop movie, but to see a 90s Antonio Banderas like coming into his peak when America was just trying to find out who he was, to see him in a buddy cop comedy, give it to me. I'd take that all
I
day.
see that too.
I have to say, I respect how you flip the switch when you say Antonio Banderas and you just go straight to Hispanic. When you say it's not Antonio Banderas.
Antonio Banderas. Exactly.
I have to point that out. Like
Yeah.
respect. No, I don't know if I've seen one of his projects, but the way you're describing it, like I feel like
Yeah, in the 2000s, he did like Volved, like so he worked with Penelope Cruz. So I'm not sure if you've seen that, but really good, man. Very colorful, very bright, very good director.
I went with James Gunn for a buddy cop movie.
Yeah.
He's shown that he's good at blending comedy, action, drama, which I feel are all parts that will make a good buddy cop movie. He's also good with group dynamics, like even though it might be a group of two or things like that, but sometimes you got family involved, you got other cops and things like that. So he's shown he can do that. We've had movies like Guardians of the Galaxy, Peacemaker with like him and Peacemaker and Vigilante. That was like a little duel, like comedy duel together. And then we had Super and Slither, again, movies showing that he can mix that action with the comedy together. So I think it would be a very entertaining buddy cop movie with James Gunn at the helm.
That's a good pick, man, because we know he could do action. And clearly he does comedy, and that's exactly what a buddy cop movie could use. So I think that'd be great.
We're gonna leave the humor behind, and we're going straight into an alien invasion movie. Dan, you are set to pick a director for your alien invasion movie. Who is directing your alien invasion movie?
All right. So with I want to preface with a lot of these, I tried going different directions. So I tried picking directors and stuff that's not so stereotypical for me. I wanted to
I
try to
did
pick
not.
different one. That's okay. Because you guys are like, you can't do Tarantino for all. So you know what? Out of spite, I'm not gonna choose Tarantino at all. So he's not on any of my list for anything. So I went with Sergio Leone. So he did Once Upon a Time in America
nice.
and A Fistful of Dollars. He worked a lot with Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
The reason why I say this, give me Cowboys versus Aliens, but with Clint Eastwood.
Nice.
So to see Clint Eastwood in the Old West fighting a bunch of aliens taking over a town, hell yeah, man, I'm totally into that. Please, because the guy clearly understands. He is one of the kings, the meccas when it comes to westerns.
The spaghetti westerns,
exactly. Get the spaghetti western. So give me an alien invasion set in a western town.
Yeah, but it's all filmed in Europe. But it's
exactly, but it's all filmed in Italy.
Yeah.
I feel Clint fits it perfectly. Like I can just picture him there snarling and saying, "Go back to where you came from."
Exactly.
These damn aliens. Get off my lawn.
And the whole time he thought he was talking about illegal aliens. He didn't realize he was talking about the ones with face. So it works. That's his best acting he's ever done.
All right, good. That's a good choice.
Yeah.
What about you, George? Who is helming your alien invasion movie?
Mine is Darren Aronofsky. I was gonna put at least one of my favorite directors on here. And the name of this movie is called Descendants. And the whole premise is that an alien invasion comes to Earth. We come to find out that the aliens are actually our original race. So we are actually the aliens that took over Earth the whole time. And they're just coming in to check in on us and see what we've been up to. And they found out that we actually failed the mission.
Naturally.
You know what's funny is like that sounds so close to Dan. You remember one of our episodes from last year when we were making up stories? And that's very similar to the storyline, how we weren't the original inhabitants here, and we actually displaced the alien race from here. Same minds.
Awesome.
That's why we're friends, George.
Exactly.
Okay, no, that's a good one. I like Darren too. I can definitely see that.
He's got great camera work, great visuals. He's good characters.
The dark, man. He'd be so dark with it. You would feel it. You know, I love Darren Aronofsky. When he hits, man. He has some of the best films I've ever seen. So to see that kind of alien invasion coming from him would be phenomenal because you can feel it in your senses.
Yeah.
It'd be horrific.
And this is the thing, like I feel with his, it will be something out of the ordinary that you see with alien invasion movies. And I feel like that's what problem that we get now with alien invasion movies. They all just feel the same. So that way, and that's part of the reason why I chose my guy for this one. And I would go with Christopher Nolan for the alien invasion movie. He's done good sci-fi already. You know, we've had Interstellar, Inception, Tenet. We know he can handle the sci-fi elements. And you know he's not going to overuse CGI either, which is a problem you get a lot of times with these alien invasion movies and things like that, where they go too far with the CGI. And you also know, kind of like with Darren, it's not going to be run of the mill. He's going to find a way to put his stamp in it and not make it cookie cutter generic. And there's a high chance he's probably going to have his brother as part of it. And so the science is going to be correct when it comes to the alien space travel and everything that's happening. Because the guy got a damn degree just to make a movie. So, like, I feel that combo itself could give us a very entertaining and different alien invasion movie.
Absolutely, man. You can't go wrong with Nolan, man. You can't go wrong with Nolan. He does every genre masterfully. So to see that would be very interesting because I would love to see what his design looks like. What's the aesthetic design? You know what I mean? They kind of tease it a little bit with Interstellar, and I actually just rewatched Interstellar like about maybe a week ago. Fantastic movie, but they tease, oh, is it aliens? You know, who are they? But like, we don't see it, and I want to see it. So yes.
Yeah. It's funny. I didn't pick Christopher Nolan for any of my things because I felt the same way that you felt, Dan, with Tarantino. Because it's like he's my top favorite director. He's done half of this list already. It's like I can't
It's
pick
hard,
him.
huh? Yeah,
Yeah. So I'm
that's
glad that
why.
someone else did.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can't not pick them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
All right. So we went from buddy cop to alien invasion. Now, we just left October, so let's get into the horror scene of things. A haunting movie. Who would you guys select? Let's start with you on this one, George. Uh, who is directing your haunting movie?
All right. I went with someone you wouldn't expect. I went with Kathryn Bigelow.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
I kind of want to lean into her strengths a bit here because she's really good with military law enforcement kind of films.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like I want to place her in a situation where they're in a war-torn country and you got like this SEAL Team 6 kind of crew that's trapped in this building and they're trying to like wait for their target to get to a certain point. And in the building, it's haunted by like the victims of the war. So you got like these
Mm.
families that died that there was innocence, but now since they're tormented souls, these soldiers are having to deal with all of these ghosts, and it's kind of like making them feel the regret of like what they're doing. Like, are they the good guys in this situation, or are they the bad guys? And like this haunting is their fault,
Mm.
you
That'd
know?
be
Okay.
cool.
I have
I'd
to
totally
admit, when
watch.
you first mentioned Bigelow, I was like, ooh, I couldn't see it. And then you described it. Now I can see it. I'm
Yeah,
like,
because
okay.
she's good with characters. Like she goes like good with like connections with people and everything. You look at like Point Break, the connection between the two main characters, even though they're on the polar opposite sides, they're also kind of the same. So I could see her connecting the soldiers with the victims and everything.
What she does, like what you said, she captures characters very well, and
Yeah,
you see the struggle, the internal struggle that she does. So I would watch it, man.
yeah.
I was like Jose when you first said, I'm like, I don't see it, and then you described it. I was like, all right, I'm in. I'd
Yeah.
watch it.
No, I
She's
can see
top
it.
tier, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I feel what makes a good quality haunting movie beyond, of course, you need the scares, you need that tension aspect of it. But beyond that, it's the emotional aspect, the human aspects, and how they interact and they connect with each other is what makes the ghost and the scary parts better
Yeah,
when it comes to these haunting movies. Because without that, I don't think you can make a good haunting movie. Because we need to care for these characters and their connections to so the stakes are there.
exactly. You gotta imagine like these soldiers, they have families. Now imagine they're dealing with like the ghost of a family that was murdered because of this war.
Good
Nice,
choice.
nice.
What about you, Dan? Who is directing your haunting movie?
So I went with Alejandro Inarritu. So that I went with him. So he did Birdman, he did The Revenant. So the reason why is because he does the deconstruction of humanity, where he focuses with characters that are wrestling with sanity. So you have a family trapped in a cabin, snows, they're trapped in there, but it's like the haunted woods surrounding them. So you have the deconstruction of the family. So you have the mom, the dad, and the kids being haunted. Like the way he does characters, I mean, it seems like every performance that teams up with him is Oscar nominated.
Yeah.
So it's the isolation is what he does so freaking well. And Birdman is one of my favorite movies in the last like 15 years. I want to sign me up. Like I think Alejandro would completely crush that. He hasn't done a haunting movie yet. We haven't seen him do any kind of scary thing yet like that. Give that to me. I think he would crush it. And the visuals that he does is so beautiful. The aesthetic designs of what he does, I think he would crush it.
Yeah, he's definitely a filmmaker. And also, like we mentioned, Birdman. I think of the one shot in that movie.
Yep.
Imagine him taking like that concept and then using it in that what you just described in that cabin. Like imagine like seeing either the entity or a person going through each room and not realizing everything that's happening around them or something to that effect. That'd be
And you
really
see
cool.
stuff in the background. Like you see
Yeah,
stuff like us, the viewer sees it, but the characters don't see it. I love when they do. Like Mike Flanagan does that. You know, we
he
were
does it,
talking
but
about Fall
yeah,
in the House, but Alejandro does it. It's just it's different, man.
yeah.
It's that je ne sais quoi. Love it.
That's a perfect transition because Mike Flanagan is my choice for the haunting.
There you go.
Someone who's very
Segue.
familiar with hauntings.
Yes.
Yeah, it's just he's shown through multiple shows that he can handle the supernatural aspect. He's been really good about creating tension and just creepy imagery. I loved what he did with the Haunting of Hill House, which you mentioned, which it was the stuff for us. It was the stuff that you have to see the show again to catch some of those things that are happening in the background, the things that the first time you're watching, you're focused on the character, so you might miss it. And he's throwing it in there, which is stuff you don't need to throw in there. They're extra, but it just adds to the entire atmosphere of it. And he's been so good about doing it. And I love those things. Like, give me some things from me. The characters don't need to react to like everything. And then we have the fall of the House of Usher now, which was really, really good on top of that. And then he's been really good about creating different levels of characters, adds like a dynamic aspect to it. Because even with like families or people that are close to each other, not everyone's going to react the same to what's happening. We even saw with Hill House, which every character handled things a lot of, and I think he's good about portraying that the different levels of denial and grief and acceptance, and those are all like emotions that come when you're dealing with haunting and ghosts, and I saw because it's such a psychological aspect to it. And he's proven that he could portray that on screen in a way that can be entertaining and creepy and interesting all at the same time.
Yeah, agree. He's someone who definitely uses every inch of the screen and his actors. Like I was noticing, like we bring up like the Fall of the House of Usher. There's certain actors like Henry Thomas who has been in, I think, in every series so far that he's done, and I felt like he's been a different person every time, to the point of how he walks and how he enters and leaves a scene, and just like knowing what to keep in there is so important. And like I've had a huge appreciation for Mike Flanagan. I was talking to my wife about it. I was like, I don't think this guy knows how to do a bad thing. Like I haven't seen it yet. He's done good movies. He's done great shows. Does he know how to fail? You know?
When I saw House of Usher, it was like our little run-on joke. He did it again.
Yeah, he did it again. But it's what you said. Henry Thomas was so different in Usher, and I love his performance in this show so far. I haven't finished it yet, so I don't want spoilers. But Mike Flanagan,
check it out. This is what he does.
Mike Flanagan pulls great things out of these actors, and they feel so different. And like you said, I haven't seen anything. Even when we talk about it in our group chat, it's like, we kind of have our own rankings, but it by no means is the bottom one bad. In no way is it not good or average. They're all good. And it's just some we appreciate a little more. And when I saw Usher, I literally said that out loud. Damn it, he did it again, because it's so good. And it's like probably my second favorite project from him. That tells me, man, you're still on it. You're not like kind of slowly bleeding down. No, you're still bounced right back up, and like it's arguably your best project, or just as good as anything else you put out there. It's just a preference point at this. So absolutely, man, the fact that he's mastered it, give me a movie of it. Let's see it.
Yeah. Through many bad decisions Netflix has made, teaming up with Mike Flanagan has been one of their good ones.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly.
All right, now going from scary to more lively, maybe action packed, depending on how you want to stylize it, but a heist movie. So Dan, we'll start with you on this one. Who is directing your heist movie?
Okay, so my heist movie, I wrote in a different section. Okay, so my heist movie I went with is Paul Thomas Anderson. So give me like a 70s style Vegas heist where they're stealing Elvis memorabilia, and give me that kind of Boogie Nights flair. That's why I went with Paul Thomas Anderson. Like, yes, all day, because it's always a quirky storyline. So rather than just we're gonna steal money, you're coming up with this extravagant thing. And I said in the 70s, you know, still during Elvis, where you have to steal memorabilia where it's so coveted and you imagine the security is super high risk and, you know, set up everywhere. So Paul Thomas Anderson, yes.
That's
I
a
like
good one.
that.
That's a good
Yeah.
choice. That's a good choice on that one.
I was
What
like, I
about
wonder what Latin person Dan's gonna pick for this
I
one.
was waiting for
That's
it.
all it's been.
Bob Anderson.
Yeah,
That's all it's
Pablo.
been.
It's Pablo Anderson.
Pablo Anderson. There you go.
What about you, George? Who's directing your heist movie?
For me, I went with a very underrated Stephen Chow. He's known for movies like Shaolin Soccer and Kung Fu Hustle.
Okay,
His
that's quite a difference.
Oh yeah, I love this guy. I think he doesn't get enough praise and people kind of sleep on him for a bit. But if you've ever watched Kung Fu Hustle, it is like live action Looney Tunes with martial arts.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
the best thing ever. It still holds up till today. And so like I can, and with that movie, like there's so many different characters, and it makes me think of like Ocean's 11 and how each person is different but quintessential to pulling off this heist. So I could see him having that kind of dynamic where in this movie called The Safe Place, he would have like his random people who would they'd have these special skills, but these skills didn't seem like they would add up to like maybe being a thief or anything. Like the guy who's like really good at moving the walk. Like maybe for some reason that
Yeah.
helps him like pop the safe easier or some shit, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I love it.
Like they have these weird things. And I kind of was like you, Dan, where like I want them to have like this odd thing to go after. So since they're Chinese, it's like they're going after like Bruce Lee's like famous shades, and like someone has them locked
See?
up like
Same thoughts,
yeah.
man. Same thoughts. Love it.
He's their Elvis.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's like up in like some huge tower, and it's at the top, and it's like we got to get it. It's at the top of the tower, and it's almost emulate also like Enter the Dragon. So they got to go through all the stages to get there.
Oh, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good.
Ooh,
I like that. I'd
Okay.
watch that, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely watch that. So I'm glad I went a little bit different than both of you. See, I like Ocean's 11, but I wanted to go different than Ocean. For my heist movie, I wanted it to be more gritty, darker, like grounded, like a thriller type heist movie. So I chose David Ayer to
Mm.
direct
I can
my
see that.
heist movie. You know, he's done well with other thrillers such as like End of Watch, Fury, Harsh Times. So like I feel like these projects are very good with having those gray area characters, and again also being like grounded in their essence. So I can picture this thriller movie where like you have the criminals, you have the cops, neither of them are good, but neither of them are fully bad, which creates that whole gray area concept where some viewers might be on the side of the cops, or the people of the wherever they're going to create heist, but some people might be on the side of the criminals. And I feel that makes a good heist movie. One of my favorite heist movies is Heat, and what I love about Heat is I'm I liked Pacino, but I was cheering for De Niro. So like
Yeah.
I liked both sides of it. So I was in conflict when I was watching it because like I don't want them to catch De Niro, but I do like Pacino's character, so I don't want him to fail. So I was conflicted throughout the whole movie. So I'm picturing a David Ayer movie with those gray area characters, kind of like he did with End of Watch with those, the two cops, they weren't like saints. And then with like think he did the movie with Keanu Reeves where he was a cop, but he
Yeah.
wasn't a good guy either. I want that type of heist movie where it was like make me want them to succeed, but then also be like, oh, but they probably should get caught.
It
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of like The Departed, like that.
Yeah, yeah,
I was kind of going for Matt Damon's character, even though I love Leo, but it's
Yeah.
like you gave me a really good, compelling character. And at the end of the day, I don't really care if they're the good guy or bad guy. I'm not a child. I love a very well written character. And if like the Walter White, even if they're doing bad stuff, I don't care. I don't care if it's a Tony Soprano. I want to see the interesting character continue to live and to succeed.
yes.
So I can see that. I think David Ayer, that's a good pick. I think he would
Yeah.
carry that mantle pretty well. I'd be in. I'd watch it.
Yeah. Definitely. I think the good thing with David Ayer too, like makes it so fun for us to watch is like he does grounded movies where like that street
Mm.
level groundedness where like you compare like to Heat, with Michael Mann. Michael Mann does like middle class kind of like you know what I mean? I mean of villainy, where it's like I can't fully relate to these guys. I feel like they're a pay grade above me. But like David Ayer criminals, like, okay, I live next to you. You're my neighbor.
There's
I
a
Yeah.
could
grit to it.
yeah, I could be a part of this storyline in some
Yeah.
way. Yeah,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. You know who would be good for that too would be Brian De Palma. He'd be pretty
Yeah,
good for what you're
yeah.
talking about.
Yeah,
That'd be another
that is
solid
true.
pick. So
That is
yeah.
true. Put them in the honorable mention.
There you go.
All right, well, let's stick with crime. Going on to the next one. We'll start with you on this one, George. Uh, who is directing your gangster movie?
I'm going with Guillermo del Toro for that one.
Oh,
Yeah. And
okay. All right.
it's just because like there's monsters in gangster films. You know, the gang member, the Godfather type person, they are a monster. You know, what they're doing is villainous, it's wrong, but at the same time they're doing it in the name of their family, in the name of love. And that's something that the Toro does wonderfully. He knows how to paint the monster as someone who's compassionate and that you care for. You look at The Shape of Water, he understands that timeline wonderfully. So like he would, if you put him back, like I want like old mobster gangsters. I don't want modern day crap. He belongs back in the day, you know, and just imagine him taking on like this Godfather type who's doing these horrific things, but we're always seeing him do these nice things for his family. Like every like we and make it a point that every week he makes dinner for his family. Like he rolls up his sleeves and he makes dinner for them. But then like the next scene, he's off just like slaughtering a whole family that didn't pay their rent. You know?
That same hand that had a knife cutting the chicken up for dinner is now cutting up limbs.
Yeah. And with how like he knows how to make a beautiful film. So imagine that scene intercut, you know what I mean? Where like he's cutting, it's the steak, and then it shifts over and it's an arm. You know.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
I love Guillermo, so anything he does, I'm gonna watch. To see him do a gangster movie, that's surprising, but I would definitely, of course, I'd watch it, but
Yeah.
it's interesting and I would really want to see what he does with that because I think it would push him out of his element a little bit. And I think that's always a great thing is when directors push themselves out of their comfort zone. Which is why I think Scorsese was making it a point of doing that after he was doing Mean Streets and started doing a lot of gangster movies. You saw him really expanding and pushing his boundaries. It'd be very nice to see Guillermo do the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'd be on board. That's a good pick.
Yeah. That seeing them attached to that would have my curiosity enough that I would have to give it a try
Right.
for sure. Oh. Uh I would okay, I took the easy way out
Mhm.
for this one. I'm gonna say it right now, just because so I went Martin Scorsese because like honestly, do I have to say much? He is like the master of like gangster movies. Like I feel he's like so far ahead that like I would be downgrading if I were to go with anyone else. So, Casino, Departed, like Mean Streets, to this day, Goodfellas, dare I
Yeah.
say, is my favorite gangster movie, even beyond like Godfather. Like if I had to choose, I'm choosing that over Godfather. And I know for many people that's blasphemous. That's my personal opinion. But it was like Scorsese has to touch it. He has to be involved in like this movie. So I took the easy way out. I don't think we need to explain too much why.
No, I get it, man. I mean, he's the king of gangster type movies, so I
Yeah.
totally understand. So
Yeah.
good pick.
So what about you,
Cheetah.
Dan? Who's your
Yeah.
pick?
So I went with something very, very different, and I wanted to go very different on this because we've seen a lot of gangster movies. We've seen it masterfully done by Scorsese. But what I liked about Godfather was when they hinted and they showed us in Italy. So I wanted to focus on Italy and show the romanticism of Italy and bright colors and really beautiful visuals and colorful characters. So I went with the Italian director himself, Federico Fellini. So he did 8.5, he did Amarcord, but he's never done anything that's been violent like this. But he does a really good job of focusing on characters and sort of evolving of characters. So to see a gangster movie set in Italy where it's sort of like a love story to Italy, where you have the world and how we're Italian Americans, where the gangster world originated from. I would love to go back to that roots, sort of like what we hinted at during Godfather and Godfather 2. Like, let's see it. Let's get a whole movie dedicated there.
Oh, that's good. And I can see that.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is like, you don't need to focus on the violent aspect of it. Like it could be something where the violent act was a precursor, and now we're seeing the effect of that precursor violent act on everyone and how everyone's interacting and the shifts that is causing within everyone. So I could definitely see that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I already imagine like someone's like grandmother, like just like with the rolling pin.
Yes,
like
you
coming
already
out, it's like,
know, man.
I told you
Exactly. It'd be awesome.
That's a good choice. All right,
Yeah.
I use my free bingo board in the middle for this one,
Oh, I
but
get it.
you
I
guys
get
had
it.
some
All
good
right.
choices.
All right.
All right, let's move away from crime, and let's go on to rom-com movie. We'll start with you on this one, Dan. Who is directing your rom-com?
All right. So I try to choose for a lot of these I try to choose directors that didn't really do a lot of these type of categories. So I try to
Yeah.
find something that's unique. So I went with Spike Lee. And
Oh,
I went and here's my story for it is it's set in the 80s. It's another Brooklyn love story, but I imagine it as a musical but hip hop. So you have a rom-com
Okay.
between two characters and it's set in the 80s when rap started. So it's a musical set with a hip hop flair to it. So to see Spike Lee doing a musical in Brooklyn from his roots, give that to me all day.
So like jungle love and hip hop.
Basically, yes. Give me that.
yeah.
Give me that, man. But to see like a nice like where hip hop started, like it's the love for hip hop, it's the love for Brooklyn, New York. Like, man, yes, yes,
I,
yes,
I
yes.
I can see that. I would be on board with that. And we
Yeah.
know, he's done romance before, and we had like Love and Basketball, which is a good romance movie set, in a setting revolving around basketball. So it was like, why not do it around, hip hop? Um, I'd be curious of like how the comedy would be like to it.
Yeah. Well,
That
his early films
the
had good
comp art.
comedy to them, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, do the right thing. Like there was some good
Yeah.
stuff there.
Yeah. So I feel it would be one of those movies that you watch, like if it was to be done now, and you get very nostalgic over. Be like, oh, this feels like a old 80s,
Yeah.
90s movie.
Yeah.
Yes. That way, like the old heads, which is what we are now, could knock our head and be like, okay, kids, you see this? This is hip
Yeah.
hop. This is hip hop, not the
Yeah.
stuff you're listening to now with the auto
You hear that?
tune.
That's
This is
Tribe
hip
Called
hop.
Quest. You hear that?
Thank you. That's what it is. Exactly. Like,
Yeah.
come on, let's go back to the roots.
Good choice. What about you, George? Who's directing your rom-com?
Uh, like Dan, I've been trying to like do definitely things that are not obvious. And so I picked Denis Villeneuve, which is known for very good visuals. I think his stories may not always be the greatest, in my opinion. You have something like The Rival, which is a great story with great visuals, but then you have something like Blade Runner 2049, which there is no story, but you're getting picturesque scenes. Like every scene, it can be shot as a still frame, and you can hang it on your wall, and it's just beautiful to look at.
I still
I
love that
think
movie because of that. I still love
that's
the movie
that's
because
the
it's
only good part.
so beautiful. It's so beautiful. But yeah,
Yeah,
I hear.
but like you take that and put that to a rom-com, I think there's something beautiful there because I love rom-coms, but there's a beauty to them. So I imagine like think like what dreams may come with Robin Williams. Remember how picturesque that was? It's a living painting. And then like The Notebook. You take like those two things together and you put him in there. I think he could create something like really beautiful.
That's good.
Good call.
I do like it. And yeah, visuals are definitely a strength of his. So I can see that.
Yeah. I had him on my list for so many movies, and I was like I already
Yeah.
went with like a lot of foreign directors, and I was like, okay, I know one of you guys is probably gonna end up using this guy, so I'll hold him to the side, but I'm glad you mentioned him. I think he's brilliant. I think he's one of the best visual directors right now. At least because the guy hasn't like he did it again. Like, you
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
the beauty of the Dune movie. I'm excited to see part two. The guy's just visually, it's gorgeous. It reminds me of like Guillermo a little bit, where the visual element you have down. I just work with a good writer to get that story
Exactly.
He
down.
has the
Yeah.
eye. He has the
They
eye.
have the
Yeah. He
eye,
has
man.
like his for him is scope. Like his scope, like for the wide shots, I think it's some of the best wide shots that I've ever seen in some films as like the past 10 years or something.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Good choice. Good choice. For this one, for the rom-com, I went with Edgar Wright. To
Good
to
call.
Yeah.
direct my
Yeah.
rom-com. I feel he has the ability to tackle different genres. He's shown that, making them both like good entries for that genre, but also making them fun. We like Shaun of the Dead, supposed to be comedy, supposed to be like a parody, but it was a good like horror comedy movie. Same thing with Hot Fuzz, ended up being a good action movie. So he's good at like picking up what makes the elements of these genres. So he's shown he has a good grasp on comedy, and he's already like included romances in movies. We saw it in Baby Driver, we saw it in Scott Pilgrim and stuff. So those romance elements with comedy have already been there. So like I feel he could definitely pull off like just a straight rom com.
I love Edgar Wright, man. I
Yeah.
love Edgar Wright. I love Scott Pilgrim. I love Shaun of the Dead. Baby Driver is really, really great. I love it. The other two, I'm obsessed with them. Um, all day, man. I love Edgar Wright. I watch anything he puts out.
I gotta say, as we go through all these lists right now, it's like I feel like me and Dan are experimenting, while like Jose's like the clutch, pitch hitter or whatever.
Like
He's
we know this
he's
is
just
a
coming,
hit. We
he's
know
just
this is a
coming
hit.
in,
It's like,
and
yeah,
it's like we need a guarantee. You guys can try your shit,
yeah.
but we need to make money.
You know what it is? We're the A24 right now. We're
Yeah.
coming up with a lot of experimental films that could be a big hit or it could not, right? Like we're giving you The Whale, like we're giving you
Yeah.
Darren Aronofsky here and
my,
Midsummer.
my movies are gonna help fund your movies.
Exactly. Yeah.
They absolutely are. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's like that guy whose videos we see on YouTube is just like rent money.
The
Yeah.
Evan Williams guy.
This
Yeah.
is all right. Well, let's hype things up a little bit. We're gonna go into spy action thriller. All right. So George, we'll start with you on this one. Who is directing your spy action thriller?
Okay, I'm going real out of the box now. I'm going with Hayao Miyazaki, who is known for like the Studio Ghibli films. So if you've seen like My Neighbor Totoro or Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, it's all anime. It's all anime
Okay.
films. But they're all like, while they're a lot fun and they're great for family, their storylines are always very much deep rooted within like the culture of the lands of whether it's like war happening or separation, loss of a family member. So like it's really deep, mature stories that just happen to have something cute behind it or in front of it, I should say. And so like I feel like he could tackle this. It'd be nice to see someone come from animation tackle a live action film, because they just see things differently. So I think that he could bring something totally brand new to that genre while still giving it like heart.
Good call. No, I totally agree. I would love to see it. Phenomenal storytelling. Phenomenal storytelling, character development. Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about recently like watching anime. Watch any of his films.
Mm-hmm.
I can recommend any one of his films and it will not be
Spirited Away.
bad.
Spirited Away.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what about you, Dan? Who is directing your spy action thriller?
So for this one, I went with the man that was denied this. So this is my free bingo card. I went with Steven Spielberg, and he finally gets to do his 007 movie they wanted to do,
Okay.
set
Cheater.
back in the 80s with Harrison Ford as 007. So give me what he originally wanted to do and give it to me where he has free reign to do whatever he wants creatively, because this was Steven Spielberg still at his peak, but still had that young filmmaker, energy behind him. To watch him do a 007 movie, I would probably go down as arguably the greatest 007 movie we've ever seen. And I wanted to see where that franchise would have gone. We obviously know he was turned down. They ended up doing Indiana Jones, thankfully, because without that, we wouldn't have had that. But what would that have looked like, man? So I want to see that age-old question of what would that have looked like?
Can Harrison Ford do an English accent?
Maybe, but we would try it. And if not,
Maybe.
then get somebody else. It doesn't have to. The sticking point is not Harrison Ford here, but I really want to see Spielberg, man. I really want to see Spielberg with it.
I mean, Spielberg's name's attached to it. I'm watching it, so
Right.
there's not much convincing that needs to happen on that end. He has earned that must-watch title. So, all right. For this one, for spy action thriller, I chose. I'm probably gonna destroy this last name, but I chose Chad Stahelski. Stahelski, he's the one behind the John Wick series. He was a
Yeah.
stunt
Mm.
man
Mhm.
over there. So like we've seen the world he's helped create in the John Wick series, and he helped make assassins like seem cool. Like overall, they made me decide like I want to be an assassin when I grow up. When I watch the John Wick series, like I want to do that. But like I feel that like assassins, they're not too far off from spies. I mean, pretty much
Yeah.
their difference is one gets like paid by the government to do a job, the other one is more freelance. But they do a lot of the same things in there. So I can picture him translating what he's done with John Wick, but to the spy world. And just think of like the badass like action sequences that you're gonna get with it.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing that he's great at is set pieces. It's not just the straight action, it's the set pieces that he chooses to place these action sequences in. And you would think after 4 movies, you kind of run out of like upping yourself in set pieces, but no. Saw John Wick 4 and he did
Did
it
he do it
again.
again?
Yeah, it did it
He
again.
did it again.
He upped the set pieces. So like now translating that to a spy thriller, now when we have again all these different parts of the world, and now you're adding that element to it, like I feel he's up and coming and I think he can pull it off. And they'll pull him away from just the John Wick series, because that's really what he has under his belt as a primary director. He's been, secondary director and group director on other things, but add a little more under his belt and just kind of shift a little bit, but keep the action, which is where his strength is at.
So like he really understands like how location plays into the choreography of every scene. Like it's as someone who like truly loves fight choreography, like a lot of people who don't do action directing, they don't get it. The fact that he came from that world, he totally understands where the camera has to be, where like there's stairs here. How do I incorporate these stairs with that light post over here? Like, how do I put all this into that so that they work around it and work with like it's all a part of their fight. It's so beautiful.
That's what
I
I
mean,
was
he
gonna
did.
say. It's like it's camera choreography. Like that's what he's doing. So
Yeah.
it's incorporating. You have to think about how many layers, like how some people could be a genius in one subject. Like you're a genius in math. You could be a genius in something else, but to have to be able to do the choreography of fighting, that in itself can be genius. But then also adding the visual element to do it and have it dance like the people are, that to me is another layer of genius that we don't often see in action movies. So the man, I would so be on board with watching that. And that's a good call, man. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is something, and it's one thing that I like about his action that he puts out there. It's not like Fast and the Furious action. Like, okay, yes, if we're gonna lay it down, it's not 100% realistic in the fact that like this guy probably should be dead. But it's something you can look at and be like, okay, I can see that being plausible. It's not like a Fast and the Furious. It's closer to like a Mission Impossible like type action where there was like, okay, the movements, the fightings, the hits, they're realistic.
The
We
Raid
just have
2.
to,
The Raid
huh?
2, man. It's like the Raid or
Yeah,
the Raid
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
it's that stuff where it was like, okay, it's realistic. Like, yes, in the real world, one shot might kill the person. We just have to imagine this person has a higher tolerance, but the rest of it seems realistic. Like that whole action sequence in traffic. Like I remember watching that, I'm like, okay, it probably will never happen, but he made me believe that this is happening. From action to monster movie. Who are you getting to direct your monster movie?
Dan, you're gonna like this one. This one's for you. All right, my
Okay.
friend.
Okay.
I chose Quentin Tarantino to direct my
Oh,
monster
okay.
movie.
Okay.
He is doing a Frankenstein movie, and it's
Okay.
just gonna be called Frank.
That's
Just-
awesome. That's
and
awesome.
I picked him for this, ironically enough, because I would never pick him for something. But it's like, what is he great at? Dialogue. So the whole point of this movie is we don't really get to see him watch him make the monster. He's just looking for the final piece. So he's looking for the perfect brain. And how is he going to find that? Well, he has to talk to the people who have the brains. So he's
That's
pretty much
funny.
like killing a bunch of people along the way trying to find just the right one. So, but he'll talk to them first. He's having a bunch of conversations with each person before he kills them. And then if they seem like they're kind of right, it's like, all right, you're the one. He kills them. He sees the brain to have that like second backup. Like, all right, now I know for sure. But it's like, damn it, no, this medulla oblongata ain't got it. Yeah,
Throws in the trash.
Yeah, but I guess imagine like these like regular conversations, this and like at a coffee shop or something, and they're just talking about whatever, or it's like, man, freaking, in Three's Company, when Jack did this, and just whatever bullshit.
Yeah.
And then little do they know, like they're like, I'm feeling a little sleepy. It's like, oh yeah, by the way, I totally drugged your coffee.
What am I picturing him having like a conversation, unrelated conversation with someone while he's putting like piece of a brain through like a garbage disposal, just like while having a
Yeah,
conversation, completely unrelated. Like, don't mind what I'm doing.
everything has to feel normal.
Oh yeah, I can see that like in the movie Django, when you see Christoph Waltz and he makes the beer and they do that tight shot where he gets the foam off with the stick and he does there's like a musical, editing to it. You can see stuff like that when he's disposing of the body and all that. You can make it almost like whimsical in a certain way. So there's a lot of comedy you can get with that.
Yeah.
And you combine that with the gruesome gore that he does. Yeah, man, it could work.
That was
I
for
would
you,
definitely
buddy.
see that. I would definitely see that.
That's a good choice. All right, Dan, who's directing your monster movie?
All right. I can't talk about directors without mentioning Stanley Kubrick. So give me Stanley Kubrick in a monster movie, which we haven't seen yet. But instead of going Frankenstein, I went with Universal Werewolf. Give me a werewolf movie with Stanley Kubrick. I want old school, like that whole flair of the Wolfman. And I want to see, because he's always shown us the monsters in man. Like that's what we've seen. Now let's see the physical form. So as much as you're seeing like in The Shining, where we see Jack going crazy and absurd, you have this man that has no control into turning into this monster. So we see the duality of the man that's going crazy and going insane and becoming animalistic as it's consuming him and his soul. And then to also see the gruesomeness that we saw, which we also saw hints of in The Shining and these other movies that he's done. I want to see that. So sign me up, Stanley Kubrick. It would be cinematic perfection.
Where's that clipboard? I'm gonna sign up too.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
That's a good choice. With this one, I gotta make sure that we make the money to make your guys' projects. So I'm gonna go with Guillermo del
Tarantino's gonna
Toro.
sell.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Guillermo del Toro for this one. Name another director that continuously puts out so many beautifully crafted, like practical creatures. And that's the thing. We're at a stage right now where there's so much reliance on CGI when it comes to creatures and monsters and things like that. That like I want that practicality back. Not that I'm against CGI, but I don't want to forget about the practical effects because sometimes they can mean so much more and they can bring you in closer. There's been times where the CGI doesn't hit perfectly. I'm laughing at the movie where maybe I shouldn't be laughing in that scene because I'm like, what the is that? So Guillermo del Toro, ideally, I would prefer if someone else is doing the writing for this monster movie and just have Guillermo's like eye for visuals and practical for effects at the helm. And that's what I would do for my monster movie.
Nice. Can't go wrong with
Okay.
it, man. Oh,
So I
what
hear you.
monster? Yeah,
It
did you
should
have a
be
specific
Tarantino to write it, and then you have Del Toro to
There you
direct
go.
it.
Frank.
With Del Toro, it doesn't matter what monster. I feel he can make any monster.
So you want like an original one?
Huh? Yeah. I
Okay.
definitely want an original one. We have enough werewolves and Frankensteins and vampires and all that stuff. I feel his mind is so creative. It's like when you go to like the bar and you're just like, give me whatever you want. Like you choose. That and that bartender is gonna nail it. That's who Guillermo del Toro is. You'll be like, hey, whatever's in your head, and it's gonna be amazing visually. All right, and for our final one, we thought we'll go wholesome with this new one. Who is directing your serial killer movie?
All right. So I want this to be an R-rated movie, and I want Tim Burton to do it. but it's not intended
Okay.
for kids. Even though
Live
he did
action or
live
like
action.
claymation?
Nope, live action. He did something similar, like, Sweeney Todd. Forget Sweeney
Yeah.
Todd. I want a real slasher, dark, gloomy. Give it to me. Give me the Tim Burton look and aesthetic look, but make it R-rated and make it for adults only. Like, that's what I want. Like the way he did, how Big Fish kind of felt more like for adults, but it was a lot more like dramatic and visuals. I want a really good serial killer movie. Tim Burton, baby. Come on. You got it in you, man. We
Okay.
talked about making directors getting out of their comfort zone. Get out of your comfort zone as the child energy that you have. Give
Make
me
it his
something that's
comeback.
adult.
Make it his
Make it
comeback.
his comeback.
Right.
Don't call it a comeback. Like, come on, let's see it.
He has been here for years.
Yes.
Okay, I'll definitely be curious about that because stylistically you won't be shortchanged.
I'm going with a repeat person that we've said before. I'm gonna go with Spike Lee. Also someone I actually don't really like most of his movies, but as of late, like he's just made things that I've thoroughly enjoyed. And I've got a premise. The movie is called Rise Up. All right, we got Daniel Kaluuya as a detective who's trying to solve this murder mystery of like all these black people who are on the rise within their communities in certain like prolific areas, and someone keeps on killing them. And we find out our killer is Lakeith Stanfield, and the reason he's killing them is because of how America and the white man perpetuating all that black hate. So they hate themselves so much because of the white man and the slavery all those years. It's like, so he's just trying to like cleanse the world of his people because obviously they're what's wrong with it.
Okay, all right, and that sounds like a Spike Lee type
Right?
movie.
Spike Lee.
Yeah.
It also sounds like a Jordan Peele movie, kind of. Doesn't it? Like,
I'm using his actors.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that helps. Both of those actors, phenomenal, man. They were excellent in the what was it? Judas and the Black Messiah.
Yeah.
Like, they were
Yeah.
phenomenal in that movie, man. Yes, I love Lakeith. I want him to do more of these type of movies. I just recently saw the Haunted Mansion that he was in. Even though he's pretty good in
Yes,
it.
I saw
Yeah,
that too.
right? Yeah. But I want to see him go that route, more serious stuff, because I think the dude's a great actor,
Yeah,
and of
like
course
imagine him
Daniel's
being like Kevin
phenomenal.
Spacey, like in Seven, like that.
Yeah. And of course
I, I
Daniel's phenomenal. He's
he
phenomenal
could
actor.
definitely pull it off. What was it that Netflix Western that had
Oh yeah.
Jonathan Mayer's in
Oh
it?
yes,
Mhm.
yeah.
He we know the talent that Jonathan Mayer is as an actor. He to me overshadowed Jonathan Mayer's in that movie.
Mhm.
And Idris Elba, he was the highlight of that movie. He stole every scene that he was
Yeah.
in. So I
Yes, it
definitely want to
was.
see more from him.
Mhm.
Okay. For this one, I'm also going to go with someone that has been used by someone else here. For my serial killer movie, I want Denis Villeneuve. That's who I want for my serial killer movie. Like, there shouldn't be anything pretty about a serial killer movie. Like, it should make you feel like uneasy. And I feel Denis has pulled that atmosphere off with some of his other movies, like Prisoner, and
Yeah.
one of my favorites, Sicario, is that uneasiness that he creates with some of his movies. And then, he's also shown with like Blade Runner and Dune that he has an eye for like enthralling visuals that kind of capture you. And I feel like the the visuals, whether it be of the deaths, that imagery that comes with it, especially with a lot of times serial killers are ritualistic, and I feel like that's a perfect time to have like some high visuals that just stay stuck in your head. Again, back to that easiness that comes with the atmosphere, and like I feel he would kill it making a serial killer movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would definitely watch it. For the reasons you said, it would look. We know the dude can direct. The dude's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So we know it's going to be directed well. And for the most part, all of our movies, like, we all mentioned directors. I don't think one of us mentioned one where I was like, that sounds bad. All of them are like, oh, that's unique. That's different. That sounds right up their alley. Like, I think we all made good choices with these, and I'd be down to watch every single one of them. Every single one of them.
I
I
concur.
agree. Now that the writer strike is done and hopefully the actor strike is done more, maybe we can get some of these projects for some of these directors.
Thank you for watching another episode of Not a Strong Start. You can listen to us anywhere you listen to your podcasts. You can watch us on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment, share on a YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter, Not a Strong Start. I am your host, Danny Kubrick. You can follow me at king_sangre.
I'm not your host. Ready, camera, action. And you can find me at This Is Mi Nombre on Instagram.
And I'm the other guy, the Big Cheese. You can follow me at Nicolapas.